secondhand advice from the book, Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Gottlieb. Have you ever wondered what therapists think about their patients? Do they have everything in their own lives figured out? In Lori Gottlieb's book, she takes us on a journey of treating mental health issues from the perspective of both a patient and a therapist. Psychotherapy, also known as talk therapy, involves working with a therapist to develop constructive thinking and coping skills to treat mental health issues or deal with past trauma. Mental health is a serious issue, especially in our country and in our current climate. One study found that 1 in 5 Americans have a mental illness, but less than half of those with moderate to severe symptoms seek treatment. We have all experienced pain. It's part of the human condition. Problems can range from a temporary personal crisis, such as divorce, to the more serious, such as suicidal depression. What if the person in pain is the therapist? That's precisely what happens to the author when she agonized over a crisis of her own. She did what she knew how to do best and seek the help of a mental health professional. A therapist sitting on the couch of another therapist may sound like the setup to a joke, but it's often the basis for how therapists gain perspective of their patient's point of view. The author gained incredible insights into her patient's experience while receiving her own therapy. Today, we'll talk about how people are blind to the truth about their problems, the deepest fears that often underlie those problems, and the critical factors to confronting and overcoming those fears. So, tell me, what brings you here today? Is the question a therapist usually uses to begin the first therapy session with a patient. A patient will answer with what is called a presenting problem. Often patients start therapy in search of a solution to a problem. That problem may be something specific, like the loss of a loved one, or it could be something vague or more abstract, like being sad or melancholy about life. However, a patient's presenting problem usually isn't the real underlying problem. Therefore, the solution they seek won't give them relief from their pain. All people carry around a false portrayal that they've constructed about their problems. We are unreliable narrators, as we can only tell our stories from our perspective, which is flawed. It comes from our childhood beliefs about ourselves and the view we have constructed of the world. We must believe that we are responsible for our own story and the current state of our lives. If we think that everything is due to external circumstances, we are unable to change. Life is about constant change. Nothing is permanent. But humans are incredibly resistant to change because change comes with loss of our identity as a wounded person, or loss of our familiar way of being. In most therapy sessions, patients try to prove their narrative's validity and get the therapist to agree with them and their perspective. We seek this external validation, and it can take a skilled therapist to read between the lines. Part of healing and getting to know yourself is to let go of the limiting beliefs you have told yourself about who you are, so you are not bound by these false stories. Having a neutral person, such as a therapist, can help us view ourselves differently and gain perspective. A therapist must glean the truth buried within the subconscious by examining clues from the patient. We use defense mechanisms to avoid painful emotions, and the trained professional can see right through them. Human beings don't like to feel emotions such as loneliness, stress, or sadness. It makes us uncomfortable, and we will do anything to avoid feeling that way. On the contrary, we want to feel good about ourselves and want others to view us positively. I have been in therapy many times over the years. I can say with certainty that it's natural to want to be liked, especially by your therapist. I only want to know that my therapist likes me more than all her other patients, and by how much. I remember my first ever therapy session where I was trying so hard to impress my therapist that she wondered why I was even there in the first place by the end of the first appointment. I was using classic deflective techniques to get her on my side. I left her office thinking, wow, my therapist thinks I'm smart and funny, so I can't tell her my real problems because I want to keep up this image. But in therapy, patients are asked to dig deeply into the most emotionally traumatic areas of their psyches. They must expose the ugly and unflattering wounds that are hiding there. In this sense, therapy can often seem like a threat, as it can open old wounds. Some of the most common defense mechanisms are anger, either inward or outward, denial, and avoidance. The things we protect against the most are often the things we need to examine. What are we most afraid to examine? Our own mortality, for one. People often make bucket lists, but never manage to cross much off of them. Why is that? Well, as we cross things off, we might realize we are getting closer to our death. More prominent, though, is our fear of loss, loneliness, and the absence of human connection. The possibility of long-term isolation can be intolerable, and often is why people stay in relationships that they know aren't good for them. Demanding, critical, and angry people can be terrified of being seen and are suffering from intense loneliness. Depression can be a symptom of underlying problems. The opposite of depression isn't happiness, but vitality. The purpose of life isn't to be alive, it's to truly live. People don't usually talk about suicide because they want to end their lives, but they want to end their pain. A therapist can be a vessel for the hope that a depressed person can't yet contain. Lack of human connections is one of the most common issues hidden beneath the surface. Having an intimate face-to-face conversation with your therapist can help forge a relationship that many of us lack and can help patients heal. Over a series of sessions, a patient can begin to feel understood. The therapist can help rewrite the negative beliefs we tell ourselves to enable us to move forward in life. In addition to the lack of human connection, therapy revolves around the absence of a couple of other things. One is a sense of meaning in a patient's life. Everyone seeks purpose and meaning in life. If we don't have those, we can feel empty and unfulfilled. The other is a sense of freedom to make choices in our lives. On the contrary, we frequently want to do what we are told. Please hand us a solution on a silver platter. But here is the dichotomy. While we want to be told what to do, we also resent being given orders. We desire to have agency over our own lives. This is why children spend so much of their childhood begging to make their own decisions and be more adult-like. The sense of freedom we desire is central to recovery. Many patients feel trapped, but ultimately, we all possess the freedom to approach our circumstances in healthy or unhealthy ways. Unfortunately, our resistance to change can make it challenging to choose a healthy path. Why do people do things they know are bad for them? We seek what is familiar. We are rewarded with the comfort of the predictable. We have an internal resistance to change. We repress our negative emotions in order not to feel them. As famed psychologist Abraham Maslow said, one can choose to go back towards safety or forward towards growth. Growth must be chosen again and again. Fear must be overcome again and again. We use defense mechanisms to deflect our pain. Everyone self-medicates. Everyone. The only difference is the method. Some use alcohol, smoking, or even binge watching television. My personal favorite form of self-medication is food, hence my other video about intermittent fasting. Our negative emotions don't just vanish if we ignore them. They continue to manifest in unhealthy ways through unconscious behaviors or even physical symptoms. Instead of eliminating this self-medicating behavior, it can be easier to replace the destructive habit with a healthy one. What is the key to recovery? Letting our emotions out and openly expressing ourselves in a safe place can help us to let our guard down. Everyone wants to be truly seen. Breakthrough moments can happen in many ways. For example, when we admit to our emotional detachment or find a way to forgive someone we've been holding a grudge against for years. We can write a heartfelt letter to someone, even if we don't send it, and it's usually a good idea not to send it. Did you know that human beings are the only species that produce emotional tears? That should be an indicator that we are meant to release emotions through crying. Letting loose a flood of tears can feel like you are breaking down, but in reality, it is a form of breaking open. When you finally acknowledge your genuine emotions and fully feel them, you can experience the freedom you deserve. When we expose our raw emotions through tears, we confront repressed aspects of ourselves and release stored pain. As humans, we suffer needlessly. Pain cannot be avoided, but suffering is optional. The difference between pain and suffering is simple. We all have to feel pain, but if we continue to bury it, repress it, and avoid it, we choose to suffer. Our problem wants to be seen and heard. Don't judge your feelings as good or bad. Just notice them. See them. We spend our lives trying to figure things out, chasing the solutions to our problems and trying to hide our pain. But it's okay not to know the answers. When we openly acknowledge our painful emotions, they lose their hold over us, and we can experience the joy of life that is our birthright. We are meant to experience happiness too. Maslow also stated, if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. Therapy can be a fantastic tool to add to our toolbox. Let's review. People generally seek therapy with a false notion of their real problems. We use false narratives and defense mechanisms to hide the true nature of our troubles. Although each of our experiences is unique, many underlying issues are universal. We all share fears of death, isolation, meaninglessness, and lack of freedom. We have a strong resistance to change that can make recovery challenging. To heal, we must express our emotions because at our core, we all search for connection, purpose, and belonging. What about you? Have you experienced healing through therapy? How do you overcome your fears? Comment below with your best advice. Please be sure to like and subscribe as well, and thank you for watching. Okay, a couple of therapy jokes to lighten the mood. A Freudian slip is when you say one thing and mean your mother. Therapy is helpful because every 2 years, I figure out what happened 5 years ago. How many therapists does it take to change a light bulb? None. The light bulb will change when it's ready.